All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want to call today's podcast is we all have addictions. And, I listened to one of my podcasts, and very seldom do I ever do that, and it was regarding partying. And basically the podcast was, if you feel the need to go out and party, go out and party. Have a good time. And I still believe that 100%. I think a lot of people, especially as they get older, they desire the old days a little bit and miss going out with friends or meeting new people, drinking. It could be doing drugs, whatever the case may be. I'm not necessarily telling you to go do drugs, because whatever you do, I want to make sure you protect yourself and you don't put yourself in a bad position. But a lot of times I say that I don't have an addictive type personality, and I never thought I did. I guess I don't to most people. And I really grew up in an environment around a nightclub and a bar. So if anybody I thought would realize if they had an addiction to alcohol, let's say, or drugs, I would have found myself involved in that. But I never had a desire, because truthfully I looked at a bar business and the drugs as a business. I didn't look at it as a casual thing. Plus, I was too obsessed with my body. I just kind of worshipped it or cherished it. And I just looked at a lot of people that drank a lot and did a lot of drugs. Now, I did have tons of friends that did moderate, drinking and partying or drugs, and they're fine. And that same goes with steroids. I had a lot of friends that did steroids off and on that are fine right now. And it almost reminds me a lot of, not to jump on steroids, but I think steroids kind of reminds me of like somebody who smoked for years or off and on and quit, and they're just fine now. But I think a lot of people think you take steroids, you damaged your body for life, and you'll never be the same. But I think you'd be shocked at how your body can rejuvenate itself. But I'm not going to get into that today. But back to the addictive. Back to steroids, that would have been the one thing I would have thought I would have jumped on, because I wanted to be massive. But I was definitely afraid of needles, and I didn't like pills. So both damn things were going against two of my biggest fears, if not my only two big fears, besides like spiders and snakes. So you'll wonder if I could just drink steroids or maybe something simple like that, or eat something that would make me big and strong. I might have done it. It was just the two things that would, that were involved were the two things I refused to do. And to this day, kind of still do. I don't believe in aspirin. And, I definitely still afraid of needles. I'm not going to lie. I could get a shot or have my blood taken, but it definitely brings a type of anxiety more than anything else. So what I want to get into with the addiction thing is, I was trying to analyze, a lot of people around me too. And as you get older, you still got your friends that some still drink, some still do weed, they all do different things. And I think for the most part, I'm not really around anybody who's really addicted, let's say, to alcohol that I know of anymore, or drugs, it seems like. And maybe they are behind closed doors. I don't know. But everybody in my life at this point, or that I'm around, is functioning fine, it seems like. And I have a massive amount of family members, friends, and, colleagues. But I was trying to analyze. I've been studying myself and my own self-behavior lately, and I've, like I said, always said, you don't have an addictive personality. And I was wondering, I find that hard to believe, because I think I do. And I think all of us do. We just have addictions to other things that may not be like the mainstream, which would be like drug, alcohol, maybe gambling, sex, whatever. I'm looking around saying, wow, I see a lot of people doing a lot of things, good and bad, with their addictions. But again, it's not drug or alcohol related for the most part. I see a lot of people with their phones, and I've discussed that before. I think we're all, at this point, for the most part, unless maybe you're Amish or something, we are addicted to our phones, as much as we'd hate to say that. Not only that, we are addicted to certain things on our phones, which could include social media. I think a lot of us deny that we're addicted to that. And I think I've definitely fallen to that category. I think most people that I know are around either love Facebook or Instagram. Some even like, Snapchat. Some like I love YouTube. And then there's so many different apps out there that, and a lot of younger people are, I believe, addicted to video games or playing on their phone certain things or watching certain things. I would say food would probably be, I think, our country, at least not North America, United States, that would be an addiction that I don't think a lot of people even understand. But they're obese, but they don't want to really necessarily classify that as an addiction. They just want to say, well, they're overeaters. But the truth is you're addicted to food, and a lot of the food is shit food. And I'm not here to judge you. I get it. Also, you could take television, for instance. A lot of people, again, I kind of fall in this category. After self-analyzing myself, I'm kind of addicted to sports shows. And, I love watching Pardon the Interruption, highly questionable. I might jump off and on High Noon. And then Skip and Shannon I like, Stephen A. Smith, whatever the case may be. I love watching those shows. And what happened with me is I always liked YouTube, and then I got the premium or the prime, whatever you call it, and it knocked out all the commercials. And I get to watch everything I want to watch without any commercials. I get to watch it whenever I want to watch it as well. And sometimes I even jump on, I like The Five, Greg Gutfeld and stuff, which is more of a political thing, but they kind of make fun of certain things. But I just like it makes me laugh, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't say I'm addicted to that, but I realized that I've become addicted to YouTube, and I loved it so much I started doing my own videos, and then in turn did my own podcast as well. So my point being is, maybe you or somebody out there, sometimes we don't really realize a lot of things that we're doing and spending a lot of time doing can be helpful, because I think a lot of videos that I watch and listen to are extremely helpful. But I do realize that I'm looking forward to that more than I'm kind of looking forward to anything else, is looking on my phone and seeing what videos are out there. And I've been trying to stop and back up, and lately I realized I can't, especially when I'm alone. I travel a lot of times by myself, but I really knew I had addiction sometimes, like if I get in a car with somebody and I plug my headphones in and I'm playing a video audio-wise, listening, and I'm not even listening to the person I'm sitting next to, or I go out to eat sometimes, and if we're in a group and then I get bored in the conversation, I've caught myself plugging my headphones in and kind of putting my phone on or plugging one headphone in, and that's very disrespectful. And I realized by saying that I don't have addictive personality that I think I do. It's just been in other areas, and that's what I'm trying to say to you. Maybe you may take a look at some of these things. And again, is it good or bad, what I'm doing? I don't think it's bad, but I do find it quite interesting that I sometimes can't stop doing even things that I say I should just stop doing, which basically means I'm almost addicted to this one device, which is a phone. And I also realized something about me too, that sometimes when you quit an addiction, you kind of spin it to something else. And I talked about that regarding smoking, and I try to help people quit smoking. I was never a cigarette smoker, but I like smoking cigars, and then I started doing it a lot while making my first film, Sore Losers. My friends were all lawyers downtown. They worked for law firms, eventually owned their own law firms, but a lot of these guys I was hanging out with were smoking cigars, and I also incorporated it into my movie. And for a while, I just, you'd have one cigar here and there, and before you know it, you may have two. Then before you know it, you're having one a week, and then before you know it, you're having one a day. And this is after time, and I talk about that with smoking or anything that we become kind of addicted to, is it doesn't start off usually hardcore. You hear these stories, like, it's not like you smoke one cigarette one day and the next day you're a pack a week. Now, it may happen, but I think it's far and few between. You gradually grow into your addiction, and my theory is the best way to grow out of it is slowly but surely as well, not shocking your mind or body. Now, I know that may not work for a lot of people. They may just have to go cold turkey. But my theory is just backing things up. I have a podcast on that and a video on how to quit smoking, at least my theory on how I did it with cigars. And again, it's not cigarette, I get it. But what I also told people is, and I caught myself, again, with the addiction situation or thinking about it is I always love smoothies and fruit drinks. And I said, well, if I'm going to quit cigars, because they were making me feel like shit, truthfully, I want to start feeling better. So I shifted to drinking more smoothies and veggie drinks, which made me feel better. And I think a lot of people, if you're addicted to one thing and you want to get off of that, especially if it's maybe drugs, alcohol, or whatever the case may be, try something when you lean off something because you want something in your body. And I think if maybe you go a healthier route, which I don't think a lot of people necessarily do, is, I think a lot of people that I've known that have, like, say, an alcohol addiction, that don't smoke, they quit alcohol, they start smoking. Or they're gamblers and they smoke, or they gamble and smoke, and then they quit gambling, and then they start drinking more and smoking. Or, they just quit one bad habit and kind of take on another, which can happen. But if you could try to maybe spin a bad habit into a good one, is my point. But here's the one that I've really recently been self-analyzing myself. I don't usually drink a lot. I'll have a margarita here or there if you want, or an Italian beer. But for the most part, I just do it for social. I don't care if I ever have another alcohol drink in my life. I don't really smoke cigars one a year. Maybe with my friends if they want now. But I realized with this, when I drink something, I usually like juices. I love juices. I love milk. That goes for orange juice, apple juice, whatever. But sometimes over the years, I've gotten sick of that. But I think the one thing I realized I can't give up is really like soda. And I used to argue with my father because all he drinks is soda, pop. Even when he owned a bar, he even put a pop machine in his home. He loves pop. Still to this day refuses to drink water and mainly just drinks Cherry Coke, Mountain Dew, root beer, anything. I mean, the orange soda, the list goes on and on and on. Even if I go anywhere with him, he might do like a strawberry frozen margarita, but for the most part, he just wants soda constantly. And I mix it up. I drink a lot of water. But I also realized that I love soda as well. And I said, just analyze how much you're drinking. Because I always thought I was drinking healthier drinks because it was juices, which have a lot of sugar, or drinking a lot of water, which I am. But I caught myself just, again, crazy self-analyzing, saying, okay, Rich, when you eat a burger, what do you love to have it with? Oh, I like it with root beer, hypothetically, or a Coke. Okay. When you have tacos, what do you like? Oh, back to the Coke. When you go to the movie theater, what do you like? Well, I like a cherry icy, which, whatever, and I'll jump on a Coke. When I eat, sometimes it could be any food. I realize per day, I never even caught myself to realizing how much soda I was ordering. I always looked at everybody else because I start off with an orange juice in the morning, then it's all water. I try to do something healthy at lunch, but at dinner, a lot of times I'm drinking soda as well. And especially if I just did it again at the Chinese food. Like, a lot of times I don't do iced tea, but I'm like, oh, I'm doing Chinese food, I got to have a Coke with that. I started to realize I'm having a damn Coke with everything, and I love Coke. Even if I got to jump into McDonald's, Five Guy burgers, if I go to Portillo's, which is one of our favorite Chicago restaurants, I'm jumping on a root beer there because I like that. Pizza, root beer, like all these things, and I can't quit. And I'm not going to quit. And does that make me addicted or not? I guess to a certain point it does. Now, if somebody came to me and said, Rich, you're getting type 1 diabetes or type 2, whatever the case may be. I'm too old for, I think, type 1. And they said you'd have to back up on sugar. Of course, I would maybe have to back up on it. But I wouldn't want to. And the one thing that I've been catching myself more than ever doing is I always looked at everybody else doing a lot of things, like drinking soda, including my kids and everyone else, my girlfriend's kid, or certain friends or cousins saying, my God, every time I'm with them, they're drinking a Coke. I may not do it as much as them, but I'm not too far off. I just find that quite interesting. And that's the thing I wanted to talk about on the podcast, really. And this can go for Netflix, or it could go for, just being addicted to, like, being a shopaholic. You don't even realize you may be shopping too much, and you're I think a lot of us get caught up analyzing everybody else's issues, or they're thinking they have a problem because they're excessive, when you may not be as excessive as others, but you may be excessive on other things more than others. And I don't think we realize that a lot of times because we ignore that. And I think that's something we really got to start paying attention to, especially food and our actions. If you have younger children, stuff like that, you're programming your children. I talk a lot about programming. And you may not realize a lot of times you're doing things that are not always the healthiest. And my daughter, actually, my oldest one, kind of said something to me, and she was right. She says, when we're younger, man, we mainly ate in Italian restaurants, but we were always at Disney and all these other places eating out. But we would eat a lot of donuts, ice cream, a lot of unhealthy foods, even though I tried to be as healthy as I could. But I also loved going out for ice cream every day. Like I said, we'd even have she's like, a lot of her eating habits, because she gained weight. And she was on meds. She was on steroids. So I just automatically said it was because of the steroids. Because I have another daughter who's very thin. But I was like 230, 240. So I was not thin. So I was always eating. But the thing was, when she was gaining weight, she said, it's because we were always going to either Krispy Kreme, Dunkin' Donuts, Dairy Queen. Just always going to places like that. Our local ice cream shops. And, sometimes you just got to be aware your addiction sometimes can, and I can't even say I was addicted to ice cream and donuts, but as I'm talking out loud, I kind of do love donuts and I do love ice cream. That doesn't mean I have to have them all the time. But back then, I was having it all the time, and I was using my kids as an excuse to say, hey, every day I pick you up from school, if we don't go to Disney or we don't go, well, actually we usually had the study and then I would take them somewhere, but we had an ice cream shop right across the street from their school in Orlando, Florida. And thank God that thing got shut down, because every day I'd pick them up and we'd run there for ice cream just to start the day off right. Before you know it, you're talking about years doing this, let alone going back to Krispy Kreme and other places. Sometimes we'd have 2 desserts, so that was like a snack. But I didn't realize a lot of what I was doing was unhealthy for not only myself, but my kids. So be very aware of that. That's all. I'm not going to get very long-winded on this podcast regarding addictions, and I'm not here to tell anybody how they should or shouldn't live. That's not my thing. I just try to bring up things to try to help people take a notice on their behavior and their self-awareness, at least lately on these podcasts. On my YouTube channel, I've been putting up a lot of fitness-related things, so if you want to check that out as well. And if you do have any addictions, like bad ones. And I'll tell you, I used to love gambling. I would say at one time I probably was addicted because I loved going and playing blackjack, dice. I loved betting. We used to take bets. So I guess that's another thing that I never really looked at. And again, sometimes I was bullshitting myself to say, oh, I'm making money. You don't talk about when you lose money, but you kind of look at it as a business. But then I caught myself if this goes back, 25 years before the internet, before you could see all the information, and we'd wait for the newspapers to come out to bet on certain games or get certain lines when we're taking bets. And I remember one time I was in Chicago, me and my buddies were betting. We were young. And the newspaper, they come at 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, just depending on where you lived. And we kind of figured out when the newspaper would come. And I lived in Melrose Park, and we'd wait. We'd literally be like, we'd go gamble. For instance, we go to these boats. We'd go to these gambling boats in Illinois that opened in Joliet. First it was Peoria, then Joliet, then Aurora. Well, there's a bunch. Indiana. We'd gamble pretty late and come back and then wait for that newspaper by the newspaper stand or by a store. Just stand there and wait. And when the guy brought the newspapers, we'd grab them, look at the lines for that, the line for that day or that. And that's how you'd make your bets, to see what the lines were. And I'm thinking to myself, you have an addiction when you're up 4, 5, 6 in the morning waiting for a newspaper to come. You may not look at it that way, but I was at a point where that was kind of controlling my life, or I was rearranging my life around that. Who's in control? You could have just went and got up in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, or whenever, 6 in the morning, whatever. You could have just went and got the paper like everyone else. No, you're so anxious to get this, that you basically are it would be like somebody, it's not the same, I believe, probably, obviously, is not getting drunk, or having maybe doing drugs and getting maybe a personal feeling off of that. But I will tell you, a feeling like when you got that newspaper, it was a relief, and then you're looking, and it's very exciting. And I think that's what happens with a lot of addictions is we become, we desire these things, and they bring us some type of happiness. And then sometimes after a while, then it becomes something that destroys us. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, check out LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Please leave a comment, share. Let me know your thoughts, good or bad. Argue with me. I love it all. All right. Take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.